The playoffs are here, and you can predict the action all the way to the finals with FanDuel Predicts. Predict the spread, the total points, and even the game-winning moments that make the playoffs. Sign up and get a $25 bonus with FanDuel Predicts.
Offered by FanDuel Prediction Markets, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant. 18 plus bonus is non-withdrawable and expires 7 days after receipt. Trading derivatives involves significant risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Manage your activity with their consumer protection tools. Restrictions apply. See terms at FanDuel.com/predicts/bonus-offer-terms.
Feisty, fearless, and fair. She's an Emmy-winning journalist from the White House to war zones, telling all sides of the story. This is the Rita Cosby Show. Breaking news.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, it's another night of violent protest taking place outside of the ICE detention center in Newark, New Jersey. Many of these anti-ICE protesters, including members of Antifa, have shown up and are definitely tussling it with the agents that are outside trying to keep the peace. And then you've got all these politicians coming in, shouting these vile things and saying that the detainment center should be open, that those nice, sweet murderers and rapists that are inside that are illegal criminal migrants, that they should be getting better food. I think there's not enough maybe truffle salt, or maybe they deserve escargot or scallops. Maybe it's the wrong menu. You know, it's a 4.5-star menu, not a 5-star menu. And then you got these people outside. I cannot believe how vile. These agents have the patience of a saint because they are getting yelled at, they're getting screamed at, and they're getting threatened, not just them, but also their families. Listen to this, quote, peaceful protester outside of the Newark Detention Center a little bit ago.
Children, your wife, all dead. Put it, my boy. I have your face, mother. You're dead. Dead. Voice to back up and put your stick down, because I'm about that life. You said come on? You said come on, right? Yeah, it's small now. Put your stick down. Tell your voice to back up. I'm about that life, my boy. I'm about.
Yeah, nice crowd, huh? You and your kids, your whole family's all dead. What a lovely, lovely crowd. And let's do actually 39. Here's a little bit more from these crazy, quote, peaceful protesters.
Every cop, every fed, shoot yourself in the head. Every cop, every fed, shoot yourself in the head.
Unbelievable. Every cop, every federal agent, shoot yourself in the head is what they're chanting. These people are disgusting. These people are horrific, and they're out there protesting because they say that maybe they're not getting the best food inside the detention center. Meanwhile, they're getting 3 square meals a day. They have a nutritionist. They have a dentist. This is insane. Absolutely insane. Putting illegal, violent criminal migrants ahead of American citizens. And so here is Secretary of Homeland Security, Mark Wayne Mullen. And this is what he has to say to the sanctuary politicians, because a lot of them are out there. You had a number of them from New Jersey and New York and elsewhere coming on out to support these violent criminal illegals.
This isn't a Holiday Inn, Brian. We're not providing luxury housing. What we're doing is we're providing a sanitary place for them to be detained. Remember, we're detaining murderers, we're detaining rapists, pedophiles, drug dealers, gun traffickers. I mean, we have some real serious criminals there. We're providing them 3 meals a day, and we're meeting the calorie standard. This is political theater, Brian, and they know this. And I have no respect for people that would rather defend criminals than actually pay attention to their safer streets because of ICE and President Trump's policies.
And one of the things that Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen is looking at is potentially pulling Customs and Border Patrol agents from these airports that are tied to sanctuary cities. It's an interesting idea. And that could obviously cripple a lot of travel. So it's not great in that regard. But he's trying to send a message to these sanctuary cities that, first of all, these people have to be vetted. And he can't trust that once they've been vetted that they're going to be locked up if they're here in the country illegally, if sanctuary city policies are not protecting citizens. And also that they need a lot more agents outside detention centers like the crazy one you just heard in Newark, New Jersey. So maybe they got to pull some agents from the airports and put them around these detention centers because they're not sending police to protect the detention centers. In fact, when that was the other thing I was looking tonight, I was like, where are the local police? I didn't see the local police anywhere around the detention center in Newark. It's like the ICE officers are left there to fend for themselves with this really despicable, angry mob. And so is that a legal thing that can be done to pull Customs and Border Protection, CBP agents that, check passports, check if someone's here legally, all that stuff, vet them when they land on international flights? Could they actually be pulled from places like a Newark or like a JFK or like a Chicago or a Los Angeles or, places like that are clearly sanctuary cities? And could they be removed for elsewhere? Well, here is Greg Jarrett's take. He, of course, is Fox News senior legal analyst.
Well, it's an interesting subject. By law, airlines cannot offload international travelers unless customs officials are present at the airport to conduct the inspection. So if DHS withdraws those agents, and I think they have grounds to do that, those airports lose their ability to handle international arrivals. And as you know, Judge, states have no authority over federal officials, and under the Supremacy Clause in the Constitution, federal law supersedes any state action or state law.
Exactly right.
Now, of course, you also know, Judge, that the states will rush to the nearest courthouse to get a judge to issue a stay and, force CBP to remain at their posts. They'll conjure up all kinds of arguments. Oh, it's punitive, irreparable harm, violates administrative procedures, who knows. But the litigation would be immediate. It would be intensive. I think Congress might also get involved to draft legislation to block DHS. I know Mullen is getting pushback from Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation. Ultimately, I think the president is going to have to make a decision on this. But look, sanctuary cities and states have brought this on themselves. They refuse to cooperate. They actively interfere.
Yeah, this is interesting. Is it time to really get tough on these politicians that are definitely inciting and rousing up the crowd that is going after ICE agents? And let's not forget LaMonica MacGyver. She was the congresswoman. She still is there in New Jersey. She actually had the cojones to show up outside that Newark, New Jersey ICE detention center this week. She's the same one who showed up there about a year ago and was charged with pushing an agent because she was kind of pushing through the crowd and shoving him, and she got charged. And she's fighting the charges. And in the meantime, she went back out to the ICE facility this week and said, it's the same facility, guys, that are doing these terrible things. And meanwhile, you hear a very different story from Department of Homeland Security. In fact, when I read the list of what these people are getting, I'm disgusted that taxpayer money is going towards these people. And they're complaining. And Mullen's message, the Secretary of Homeland Security, is if you don't like it, they should have just flown home. They should have just flown home and gotten out of this country and not come to this country or committed crimes. But guess what? They broke into the country. Then they committed heinous crimes that got them locked up. And then you have U.S. politicians defending them. Where were these people if they're so upset? I know one of you guys called last night and said, oh, the kids. And you know what? I feel bad about the kids. But guess what? These hypocrites out there didn't feel bad about the kids when it was a Democratic president. They could care less. That's why this is all political games. And that's what makes it so sad. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to David in New Rochelle. Go ahead, David, line 4. Your thoughts tonight.
Well, I just want to let Mayor Modami know that the American Jews were instrumental in winning the American Revolution. General Washington had a very close relationship to many Jews during the war. There's one particular island in the Caribbean called St. Eustace. 50% of the gunpowder and arms and clothing went through that island, and the people that brokered those, the transport, were all Jews who were kicked out of Spain during the Inquisition. So Jews go way back. The next thing I want to tell you,
but and David, I hear what you're saying. They do go way back, and yet he is defiant. So what do you make of that? The fact that he said, "I have made my position clear."
He's basically a moron. I hate to say it. And the slang in Jewish Yiddish is called a putz.
Yes,
he's a putz. He's a complete idiot. The other thing is on the dollar bill is the Star of David, the Shield of David. And the legend goes that George Washington spoke to Chaim Solomon, one of the big financial guys who helped George Washington, General Washington. At the end of the war, he spoke to Chaim Solomon and asked him what he wanted as a gift for his contribution to the American Revolution. And Chaim responded, put on the Star of David on the dollar bill. And George Washington did that. So if you look at the dollar bill, and this is a fact, I'm not making it up, it's underneath the eagle. And that goes to the contribution that the Jews made during the American Revolution.
Well, clearly, by the way, David, you make a great point. And clearly, this mayor has no clue and just does not care. I mean, he's also doing this sort of takeover of what he calls bad landlords. If he feels like they didn't abide by certain things, he's going to take over their property. He's also doing the second home tax that went through. That was a New York State thing that he was thrilled about, pushing for the second home. I mean, people are going to flee New York. And then you have somebody who clearly, I believe, is very much anti-Semitic and doesn't even seem to be, he's trying to dress it up like, no, I'm not anti-Semitic. I just don't like Israel. I won't even march in a parade. I won't even spend time in a parade. They're not worthy. I mean, that's essentially what he said. And this is I think we're on a dangerous path. David, thank you. I think your points are really powerful. Thank you very much. Let's go to Joaquin in Pennsylvania, line 5. Go ahead, Joaquin.
Good evening, Rita. Hey, I'm sorry I keep bringing up other callers, but you know something? You had called Larry earlier.
Yep.
And he said he's glad that Madam Danny's not marching the parade. I agree 100% with that gentleman because at least he's not, being two-faced about the whole thing, and you can actually see who he is for what he is,
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I will give him credit for this, that he's sticking to his values. Not that I like his values, I distaste them, but he is sticking, just like you said, to his values and to the position. And this is what he said before, being elected, and he's just living up to it. He tried to mask it a little bit slightly, and that globalized the Intifada answer. Now, how do you think he would have been received if he had marched? I mean, to me, it reaffirms what we all thought, and he's just coming right out and saying it. I mean, it's pretty shocking. Usually you hear a politician who's like, well, it just, it doesn't work, or for whatever reason, I'm not able to be there. They always kind of make some excuse, even if they didn't want to be there. But he's just like, nope, I'm sticking to my values. I don't agree with the state of Israel, and I'm not going to be there. So if he were to march, what kind of reception do you think he would have gotten?
You know what? The problem is, unfortunately, I believe that the people on our side, the Jewish people, they would be gracious, And so I don't think he would have had too much of a problem, except for maybe from his own side getting some blowback from them. But I actually had a couple other points I wanted to make real quick, and one of them actually involves Mahmoud Khalil. But first, as far as these protesters outside these detention centers go, we should have a larger federal law enforcement force sent in there with buses. And if anybody's making terrorist threats, imagine some poor idiot makes a phone call while they're drunk, right, and leaves a message, and they make a terrorist threat. How often have you heard that somebody gets arrested for that? If these people are making terroristic threats against ICE agents, then they should actually be arrested. So I would have buses out there, and I would have a force out there, and I'd start arresting anyone breaking any law and I'd hit him with a federal charge so it doesn't have to go through the state. You know?
By the way, I agree. Threatening an agent with his saying, first of all, I don't like the every cop, every fed, shoot yourself in the head. That's a threat. But the other one, the first one is, you're effing dead and so is your family. And they were trying to rip the masks off of ICE agents. I mean, Joaquin, this is why they wear these masks, because of nuts like this. You want an ICE agent to be identified so they can track him down and track down his family? So a kook like that could show up at the door? What do you think, Joaquin?
No, I agree. But now you're never going to guess whose head reared in Montreal, Canada. Mahmoud Khalil, a Montreal for Palestine event. I came across this today on social media, and unfortunately I lost it. There was a young lady, a Jewish young lady, a college student who apparently had run-ins with him. And he was at a protest, Montreal for Palestine, and it had a float which actually showed a Jew hanging in effigy. And she was saying how they're trying to...
It's the Rita Cosby Show. Rita Cosby is on.
And let's go to Victor in Maryland. They're on line 5. Go ahead, Victor. Your thoughts tonight.
So these politicians are bent on inspecting that hall in New Jersey. Okay, if I had my way, this is what I would do. Okay, I'll let you in. So they go in, and then I shut the door, and I don't let them out.
So you keep them in there with the illegal criminals, and you say, "Hey, are you ready for your 3 square meals a day and your nutritionist and your dental care and all that?" And they may go, "God, this isn't so bad after all," right, Victor?
Yeah.
Victor, I kind of like your idea. They'll let them in, see if they enjoy it, and I also, these people are so hypocritical and so dangerous because they're riling up the crowd, Victor. They're getting all these other people outside, all fired up. And the politicians, hopefully they know their limits. But I saw a scene with Menendez, the son of Robert Menendez, who's a congressman. And one of these protesters was screaming at him, a counter-protester. And he started doing the old 4-letter F word back at him. I was like, who's that? Oh, it's a politician.
It's the Rita Cosby Show. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
Bit of Southern rock there, and you got to play a little good music, because I'm telling you tonight, things are crazy. You got these crazy protesters in New Jersey. You got Mondani saying, I'm not going to change my views. I have no desire to be at that parade. And then you got all these kooky threats. There was a new threat, by the way, just a little bit ago with a guy who was accused of trying to kill Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's wife, and others at Turning Point USA's women's event next week. Luckily, this guy wasn't too smart, and he was out there on social media and posted, "I know where to bomb. I know where to bomb." Telegraphing is a San Antonio guy, and they said they're still going to go forward with the event, that they will not be intimidated by these threats. You can imagine probably all the threats that Erica Kirk continues to get. Charlie Kirk certainly got many. And of course, one of those terrible, horrible people took his life. And Erica Kirk is saying she is staying strong, and she and the others will continue with this event next week in San Antonio. Luckily, they got this guy who was making these horrible threats to her and others at Turning Point USA. Really frightening situation. And meantime, speaking of crazy people, you got Hassan Piker. Joaquin was just talking about Mahmoud Khalil. That's the guy who's been hanging around Zora Mandani and others, leading those pro-Hamas campus protests. And then you got Hassan Piker, who's the YouTuber who, remember, famously said that America deserved 9/11. And then he was hanging out with Zoran Mandani and hanging out with Abdul al-Sayed. That's the guy in Michigan running for Senate. And then just recently, Hassan Piker got word that he's been subpoenaed because he went over to Cuba and he went on a, quote, humanitarian mission. It turns out it was funded by the group Code Pink that does all these horrible protests across the country and on college campuses. So you get the sort of all these puzzles pieces put together. And Hassan Piker then came out and said, you know who funded the trip? This guy, Neville Roy Singham, who's an American who's hanging out with the Chinese in China and funding all these anti-American groups, according to a lot of people, that he's putting millions upon millions of dollars. The guy's a billionaire. He's an uber wealthy guy, and he's apparently putting hundreds of millions of dollars to these different groups that then go out and sponsor these protests. That's what a lot of people are saying. So here is Hassan Piker because he said he was going over on a humanitarian mission to Cuba. Now, you know what's happening with Trump with Cuba. He's trying to squeeze them because of the authoritarian regime there. We just went after Raul Castro, the former president, Fidel Castro's brother. And so Hassan Piker goes over, and you got to listen to what he said on his own social media page. He goes over and then he blasts American policy, saying, you guys are starving Cuba, horrible Trump administration. That doesn't really sound like a humanitarian mission to me. Listen to this.
What's up, guys? I'm Hassan Piker. I'm here in Havana, Cuba right now on a humanitarian aid mission alongside numerous other organizations, including but not limited to the DSA. And my goal here today is to bring awareness to what my government, the United States of America, has done to the Cuban population, one of the most ridiculous embargoes of all time that has only gotten more deadly as time has gone on. We have tremendous sanctions on oil transfers in this country. We're not allowing other countries to send in oil as well. It's a necessary resource. The hospitals are in a state of dire disrepair already due to the different components of sanctions. The hospital machines are broken and they can't be repaired because Cuba is considered a state sponsor of terrorism. And I wanted to basically showcase the personal lives of everyday Cubans and how this system, this rigorous sanctions system, dominates their lives in very meaningful ways, and yet we don't even know about it. Most Americans don't even know about it. And I would go so far as to say even a lot of Cubans don't know about it either. So my goal, hopefully, is to bring awareness to the inhumanity, because collective punishment is a war crime after all.
So the U.S. is committing war crimes against Cuba. He's just going over there on some humanitarian mission and bashing America. Well, here is Peter Schweitzer, the great investigative journalist, with his take on what's going on really with Hassan Piker and others.
There's some. One is the Foreign Agents Registration Act. If you are engaged in political activities in the United States and you are receiving funds or you are coordinating with foreign governments, you are supposed to register with the U.S. Department of Justice, so everybody's aware of it. Failure to do so means you are committing a felony. So they are looking, I think that's what they're looking at Hassan Piker for. And by the way, this claim that, it's just humanitarian, Cuba has been involved for a very long time in developing cells in the United States. They have this program they're called the Vincent Ramos Brigades. They bring young, sort of college-age students to Cuba. They give them the revolutionary fervor, and then they call on them later as political allies. And you've got people like Karen Bass, the current mayor of Los Angeles, was somebody who went through the Vincent Ramos Brigades program, which is run by the Cuban Communist Party. And Hassan Piker, as much as he wants to say he was there for humanitarian purposes, maybe that was part of it. The other part of it, I have no doubt, was political coordination. Cuba is desperate to survive. Their system does not work. It has not worked for a long time. They've been able to linger on because they got cheap or free oil from Venezuela and from Iran. Guess what? Because of Donald Trump's foreign policy, that oil's not coming anymore. That's why Cuba's in a desperate state. And what they need is activists in the United States to prevent or try to prevent American foreign policy from taking its course. But I think they're going to fail. But it's a reminder again, whenever you see protests, whenever you see this kind of activity, we need to be weary and remind ourselves who gains from this. We are in a global world, not just a global economy, and that means these political movements are operating in our country as well, and they're trying to distort our foreign policy for their ends.
How scary is that? Who's working for America and who's working against America? 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Mike on the Lower East Side, line 3. Go ahead, Mike.
How you doing, Rita? Yeah, so far, I support President Trump with taking out the nuclear stuff and everything that he has done up to now. But he's got to be very careful of Erdogan, okay? Erdogan would be the only one that would want the regime in Iran to exist and not fail. So he's got to be careful not to let Erdogan persuade him in any way.
No, that's by the way, he's not the only one. I mean, you think Russia and China would certainly love to keep this regime in too.
So, yes, but Erdogan is the guy we got to watch out for. Mandami's a bag of wind, you know. I mean, if he wants to be stupid, he's going to wind up fading out. Like he's gonna be a fart in the wind. If he hates people like Jewish people are the best people in the world. I was born and raised in the Lower East Side, man. When people didn't have money, they would go shopping for you get tailor-made suits for $5 back in the 50s, and if your mother didn't have money, the guy would give it to you, man. That same way with food or anything. They were the nicest people in the world.
Absolutely.
How could somebody hate Jewish people?
Yeah, it's disgusting. By the way, that fart in the wind comment is a new one. That's a good one, Mike. That's a good one. Mike, it's great to hear from you. Thank you very much. Let's go to Linda in New Jersey on line 4. Go ahead, Linda.
Well, hi, Rita. I would like the chaos to stop. And I think if they are rioting against ICE agents, why doesn't Trump why doesn't he nationalize the National Guard and send them in there to stop the chaos?
Now, that's a good question. I mean, there's two reasons. One, usually the governor plays a role. This governor is not going to do it because this governor is blaming the agents for the escalations. I'm talking about Governor of New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill. She's right out there with the protesters. And I think the other reason is that he's worried if you were to do that, it does kind of take it up and ups the ante and might even be provocative action. He's trying to sort of find that balance of obviously not wanting the chaos that I think any good American citizen would agree with. But I think he's slightly worried that if you send out the troops out there, it's going to really heighten the tensions and maybe even have more protesters coming out. And then some of these crazy politicians will say, oh, look, there are troops on the American streets. Let's get, you got to triple your group out there. I think he's hoping it's going to sort of fade away. And let's hope it does. But on the other hand, I agree with your point that he's got to get tough. I think they need to start doing more arrests of these people because you can't make these vile, despicable comments and get away with it and wear a mask in a lot of times. And then they're vilifying the ICE that's wearing the mask. So I do think it's time to get tough. And I actually think there should be something. I'm hardcore on this, Linda. I actually think some of the politicians should get charged with like incitement, because they're out there inciting these crowds to come out there. When you see a local politician, like even the mayor or the governor or those people out there, shouting and screaming, that is definitely inciting other people to get out there and the average citizen to do the same. And even if their goal isn't to have these crazies push and shove agents, it's happening. And I have no doubt that their presence there is creating some of that moment. If they weren't giving attention to it and they weren't allowing it and praising it, I don't think it'd go on. So do you think that there's another thing they could do? Do you hear what I'm saying about the National Guard? I think in some ways, he might feel it inflames things.
Yes, I do. But I do think that he could override it. He could override Cheryl. He, like I said, nationalize the National Guard.
Yes, he could
do that. And
Yep.
if he doesn't do it, he's going to look weak because we shouldn't allow chaos.
Yeah, and that is the balance. I agree with you. I think, he can't let it get much worse. Hopefully it doesn't get much worse, but you're right. He might have to take some very strong action because you got to take control of your cities. And what scares me too, Linda, is we're heading into summer. I mean, we're in the summer season already. And that's when a lot of these protests happen because a lot of people are fair weather protesters. Like we saw it on a lot of the college campuses because it was nice weather and they could get out and they had the time to do it and all these things. So you have to wonder as we're heading into the summer months if it is going to get a lot worse. And we're heading into the midterms. Let's not forget that. This is such a political year. And that's why all those politicians are out there. Great points, by the way. Very, very good points. Linda, thank you very much. Let's go to Charles in Queens on line 2. Go ahead, Charles.
Hi, Rita. First of all, I want to say that you consistently put on a fantastic show, and it's not as easy as it looks. So
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. You guys make it easy because I get a chance to talk to all of you. So that's the fun part, Charles.
But you're very special.
Thank you.
Also, I want to say I appreciate the fact that you fight for truth, justice, and the American way, especially for being pro-Trump, pro-Israel, and pro-the Jewish people. God should bless you, and God, I'm sure, is blessing you and will continue to bless you for fighting for truth and justice.
Thank you.
The reason I called is I want to say 2 quick things. One, the previous caller said that the first Jewish mayor was Abe Bean, and I'm sure that by far the majority of Americans believe that. However, the truth is different. The truth is that Fiorello LaGuardia was Jewish.
Right. Of course, the famous mayor, 34 to 45 in New York.
Right. And he was, I believe his mother was Jewish, which makes him 100% Jewish. I also want to say that most Americans, unfortunately, do not know how ethical the Israeli army, the IDF, and so on, is. Hamas and Hezbollah shoot missiles and keep all their ammunition from hospitals, from kindergartens, from schools, and so on. But when Israel attacks, it warns all the residents of those areas to leave. So, of course, the terrorists also leave. And if Israel does attack, it's a surgical attack, so they shouldn't kill any bystanders. But the world seems to believe the media, which is pro-Democrat and pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah, that Israel is doing genocide. And many, many Americans fall for that lie. You hear it enough times, as I think it was Goebbels or Himmler, I'm not sure, by Hitler, but in Germany, that they said that if you repeat the lie enough times, it becomes in people's minds 100% the truth.
You know, Charles, you are so right that Israel goes through extraordinary steps. I mean, even in the case like you talked about, going up against Hamas and some of their strongholds, they would announce they're coming in and send down the flyers and tell the citizens to move because we're going after military targets. You are absolutely correct. No, almost any other military in the world almost goes through such extraordinary steps to do that. And Israel should absolutely be commended. And that's why I have such respect for the Jewish people, for the state of Israel. And let's hope Mondani has an epiphany one day, and he does too, because I think his behavior about all this has been just utterly disgraceful, utterly disgraceful. And thank you for recognizing truth, justice, and the American way. Charles, thank you. You got to call back again. Really important conversation. And great that he highlighted Fiorello LaGuardia, who many people believe obviously was Italian, but also was indeed Jewish. And of course, as I mentioned, mayor there, 1934 to 1945, the great Fiorello LaGuardia. And everybody, we're going to continue your calls after the break, 1-800-848-9222. But first, support our heroes.
The Rita Cosby Show presents Support Our Heroes.
And this is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Support Our Heroes segment with a very powerful story from Meridian, Idaho, where Patrick Teixeira, he's a World War II veteran, was honored for his service at a special ceremony. The 97-year-old World War II veteran was born and raised actually in Hawaii, and he said he worked in Pearl Harbor when he was 15 years old. He said, when they dropped the bomb, I went to Japan then to clean up. He said, I saw the beginning and I saw the end. Wow, very powerful, true life history that he was living. By the way, also the organizers of Honor Flight, it's a great organization. I have seen a lot of the Honor Flights in action where they take the veterans to Washington, D.C. to go to the memorials and often pay tribute to their fallen comrades. Well, they said that they want to bring veteran Teixeira for sure on an honor flight. He's agreed, and he is going to go this fall to Washington, D.C. So that is going to be very, very powerful. And how beautiful that they love and appreciate our veterans. Well, the best organization out there, everybody, is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. They are top of the line. And all it takes is just $11 a month to make a huge difference in the lives of America's military and our first responder heroes. Donate $11 a month to the great Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Be sure to check them out at T2T.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org.
It's the Rita Cosby Show. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And let's go to Jay in New Jersey on line 4. Go ahead, Jay.
Hi, Rita. How are you tonight?
I'm good. What do you think?
Rita, I think that, I have a question. Is there any evidence that Mickey Sherrill had ever protested the conditions of jails outside the United States where Americans were locked up abroad?
I don't know the answer to that, but I doubt it, right? I mean, so what's your point real quick?
Somebody should ask her and those protesters if they care more about Americans than they do illegal immigrants.
That's a great point, Jay, because you're right. I don't remember them, by the way, even when maybe there were issues under Joe Biden. They weren't out there. Maybe the word hypocrite comes to mind. Great point, Jay. We'll continue. Have a good night, everybody.
It's the Rita Cosby Show.